not only the national country basis. We have to develop our capacity regional basis also. This is very important because otherwise we cannot move. We cannot. It is very, very hard to move this one. We are talking about the sustainable development. Any development cannot do alone. We need the cooperation. That's all. Thank you very much.
Cooperation is a good word. Haruki, you want to come in? Yeah.
I have a comment to the person who say the local people should join the science and scientists should collaborate with them. So I agree with your idea. So scientists should contribute the local people and collaborate with them. But one solution will be the downscaling tools I talked to you. So that downscaling modeling system's philosophy is like a Apple iPad that everyone can use it. So if our new downscaling system with guideline informing users on the prediction uncertainty and application limit, local people can use our new downscaling system on PC and can understand uncertainty of the local climate projection results. And the policy making will be reflected to the downscaling results and local climate projection if they can operate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a good point of trying to take model further down. Not easy. Yeah. Those of us who do modeling, it's not that easy, but definitely an option. Let me go to Peter King. I'll give him 5 minutes so that, the 4, 5, yeah. Try and skip. And see if you can pick up some from the audience as well as Indeed. Something that has come from this side. I think some very good comments have come from the audience as well. Please.
Excellent. I'll try and do it in 4.5 minutes.
Yeah. Don't do it, no bad.
Just going back to some of my statements, I think that there is a general view in the room that sustainable development needs to be re-examined in the light of climate change adaptation, but we shouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater and trying to start anew. There's a lot of experience in relation to sustainable development, and we should build on that as we go forward. Secondly, there is a lot we can learn from existing approaches to disaster management. Again, we need to be learning those lessons rather than trying to develop a completely separate set of structures and responses. Thirdly, I think there is a need for a local sort of level intervention approach, which is not to say that top-down is not important, but rather we need to understand the questions of the bottom 4 billion. You know, there's this book about investing in the bottom 4 billion. We need to understand their questions and their issues and their challenges, build on their existing knowledge, which may not be written in books, may not be in sort of academic treatises, but try and understand their role and have science addressing their questions rather than necessarily addressing the top-down questions. And then the question of creating a new class of climate change specialists. I think the evidence is that all hands on deck are needed. So I actually welcome the fact that everyone is interested in climate change now. And it's not just the money that's attracting them. I think it's the fact that we all recognize that this is a survival issue for the planet. We don't want to end up like Mars without an atmosphere. and therefore
You'll be there to recognize it.
climate change concerns all of us, and therefore we all need to become specialists in that respect. The level of vertical integration is obviously important, and I don't think we have good mechanisms yet to ensure that that actually takes place. But recognising the problem is half of the solution, and if we recognise the problem, then we can begin to work on solutions. I think that looking at adaptation as a development opportunity becomes extremely important as additional financing becomes available. We need to ensure that that money gets right down to the local level and is applied at the local level. And then finally, I think you know, we have a great illustration that human ingenuity will eventually provide us with the tools for adaptation, and I welcome the user-friendly approaches in modelling. You know, the biggest complaint we hear when we talk to local government planners is we don't know what the climate change predictions are for our province or for our county or our communities. All we have are these global models which you know, really don't help us very much. And so I think that is a priority need. So with that, I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's been a very good list of, you know, I think your previous role of provocateur was more exciting. You have tried to pull together and give a number of solutions. Well, first of all, thanks to everybody for giving all that input. Let me just try and summarize a couple of things. One is, it is not vertical integration in this room and horizontal integration in another room, and they don't talk to each other. They do talk to each other. They have to talk to each other for analytical purposes. If we put everything in this room, we'll never get out of the room. And that would be, so it's an analytical tool, and we must be talking to each other. Absolutely. I don't think there is any question. As to the response strategies, you know, it has to be done at the level of the government, at the level of the international community, at the level of the regional interaction, cooperation, at the level of course, national government, which is the strongest amongst all these, and then at the local level. The National Adaptation Plan of Action done by many countries, there are absolute urgent call from many, many communities and many levels, provinces, districts, to do local level adaptation plan. I think those would be the way to the future. The idea about climate impact assessment, when you do a project, climate is, if you go to the Ministry of Finance, then climate isn't at the center of things. There are 100 other things that are going on. You know, if you look at various decisions being made in the last few months and years, all is not climate oriented. So there are a huge number of decisions made. How can we integrate climate into those decisions? That is so climate impact assessment could be a tool, provided we can get it right and we understand how to do it, would be one way. And when we talk about biodiversity, we talk about institutional diversity on climate response. There has to be diversity, space for diversity as well. So different options, different ideas come in. One issue about technology that has been mentioned, one of the, I won't call it an advantage or disadvantage, one of the situation of adaptation is, you know, in mitigation, many of the responses, because there were many of them were technology-based, were in the hands of the northern elite institutions, whether they're governments or universities or companies. But adaptation is co-learning. We are learning together. Rich countries, poor countries, rich communities, poor communities are learning together. There is absolutely no question that everybody is being affected by climate change. So everybody is becoming a victim of climate change. But who is the most vulnerable? Now, vulnerability, there is a whole thesis about vulnerability, and then one of the issues is, it is at least three major components, and I'll finish in half a minute. One is the impact of the event. And in this case, the event is climate change. where the cause is greenhouse gas. So that has to be reduced. The answer to my friend there is greenhouse gas in Bangladesh, yes, we don't produce it. We reduce as much as we can. So those who produce it have to reduce much more than they are reducing. So mitigation is central to this. So one is the issue of how intense is the event. Second is what are the baseline conditions. And in the baseline condition, the poor will be more affected. There is no question. Are they the most vulnerable? It depends on your definition of vulnerability. If you are talking of number of dollars per capita, then they are not losing the highest amount. But if you put it, the amount of human energy lost, human disposition of human assets in proportion to what they have, of course they are the ones. So it's a theoretical and a research challenge, but it's not an issue either or. Everybody is being affected. How do you do it? If tourism goes in a country because of climate change, it affects the rich and the poor and the international, national, everybody. So there are sectoral issues in that. On the issue of technology choice, now, those who are Popperian, Karl Popper's theory, believer in the theory that science is not neutral. Science doesn't come from heaven. We create science. The question is, what is the question we are trying to address in science? If the question is, how do we think about the bottom 4 billion, then the science starts becoming slightly different, if not dramatically. So who defines that question? That question is defined by power relationships. That depends who represents our power. If it's our parliamentarians in a parliamentary democracy, or if it's elected people, or is it academics. Now, science is very complex. And I'll stop here. We must try and make science as simple as possible. And Einstein was asked about scientific communication. And his answer was, make science as simple as possible, but please do not make it any simpler. If you do that, then it becomes very clumsy. So it is not always possible. The science has a different language, different history, different traditions of analyzing the problem. Response strategies have different ways, and can we pull them together? The way to do it is bring the power closer to the people and the communities, and let the decisions be there, because climate change particularly will have the highest impact on the lowest level. Whether it's ecosystem, whether it's the poor communities or communities, whether it's institutions, that's where it will be played out at the end of the day. Of course, big institutions will also be affected. You know, future plane travel will be affected, future tourism would be affected, future agricultural growth will be affected, productivity will be affected, what type of seeds we need will be affected, how much water is there will be affected. So it is not an isolation. So we have to integrate across the levels, up and down the levels. Which one you give higher proportion depends on our position with the power structure that we live in. I think we are 3 minutes off. We better stop here. Thank you very much for your cooperation for handling this.